Excellent. That's right. Are we legal? Is everybody ready? Good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to call to order the first town council meeting of 2020 in the new decade. It is Tuesday, January 14th. It is after 6 p.m. I want to welcome everybody here. Our agenda has been published before you. We will start off with item number 1 with the prayer by Rich Robinson, followed by a pledge led by Mayor Pro Tem Tom O'Rourke. Please rise.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this beloved community. We thank you, God, for the places from which we've come, from the history that we share, to the present that we serve, and to the future that we dream of and plan for. God, we ask that you guide each and every council member, each and every member of our public safety, and all of our city employees as they shape this community. God, bless our citizens and bless this time and give it your wisdom and your guidance. And it's in your holy and precious name that we pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Those kids are ridiculous.
Wow.
Santa sleigh.
Sounds very, yeah, it sounds like a sleigh.
I guess medals. Have a lot of medals.
Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Item number 4, public hearings, awards, and presentations. Item A will be a State of the Town address that has been noticed for 7:05 p.m. So when we get to that point in the agenda, we'll take a brief recess, and I'll come over there and give a short speech, and then another recess for those of you who need to get going. Item number 4B is a public hearing to receive comment on the proposed amended municipal budget for 2020. Mrs. Kotal.
Yes, sir. Pursuant to South Carolina Code of Laws, Section 6180 and 61-330, this is a public hearing on the proposed amended Town of Mount Pleasant fiscal year 2020 budget. This amendment includes the new short-term rental application fee of $50 and permit fee of $200. The amendment in full is $3,121,922.
Is there anyone here to address the topic that was discussed in this public hearing? If not, I'm required by law to bang the gavel. It doesn't mean the meeting itself is over, just that portion of the public hearing. This public hearing is closed. Item C, recognition of cross-country national championship team and longevity awards.
Mayor, council members, will you please come forward?
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is one of the funnest things I like to do as a council member is recognizing our youth out there. We have a tremendous youth population here, and needless to say, thank you to the parents who've done such an excellent job, and to the coaches who have worked with these children. You know, our high schools are doing fantastic simply because I think the youth of today are you know, being taught and coached and raised properly, and I'm so proud to be up here today to be able to tell you some of the fantastic things that our youth have done today. I want to just highlight the Mount Pleasant track season's 2019 season. Head coach Tammy Dennis. Look at these guys. Look at that. Coach Tammy's used to this. She comes up here every year. She's done a fantastic job at her and her assistant coaches. done a fantastic job with these kids, and I just want to read some of the accolades that they did. They won their 16th state championship on November 9th in Aiken, South Carolina, winning all 8 age groups. Had 7 individual state champions, and I'm going to go through their names, and hopefully I won't beat the names up too bad. Savannah Hilsup, Miles Tornelis, Julia Goldman, Gabe Hilsup, Abby Hanrin, Andrew Rowe, and Nick Forilio. Guys, raise your hand and let everybody see who you are. There you go. Congratulations. They then traveled to Tallahassee, Florida for the regionals on November 23rd, competing against Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, and finished first in 6 age groups, finished second in 1 age group, and finished third in another age group. That's amazing. They won 3 individual races: Savannah Hilsup, Miles Tornelius, and Gabe Hilsup. Won those, they came in, they won the 3 individual races, so please give them an applause. On December 14th, the team traveled with 57 athletes to USATF Junior Olympic XC Nationals in Madison, Wisconsin. Mount Pleasant had 6 individual All-Americans and 3 teams at the podium. That's amazing. The individual All-Americans included Savannah Hilsup, Miles Tornelis, Dylan Johnson, Ryder Coates, Gabe Hilsup, and Nick Forilio. Please give them an applause. Raise your hands, guys. Hey. The 3 teams at the podium included 8 and under girls. They finished 2nd place: Savannah Hilsup, Lucy Baxter, Sienna DiAgostino, Olivia Lee, Ada Click, and Ruth Johnson. Eight and under boys national champions: Miles Tornelis, Dylan Johnson, Ryder Coates, Vinnie Coate, Even Wickart, Carlson Schlier, Landon Howison, Landon Moy, and Maxwell Jordan. And last but certainly not least, the 9 and 10 boys national champions: Gabe Hilsup, Beckett Schleier, Drew Butler, Anthony Coate, Zachary Teachman, Tanner Volkman, Burkett Jan, Drew Loftus, and Tommy Romano. Ladies and gentlemen, we had 30 All-Americans, the best ever. Please give them a round of applause. I'd like to get Steve to come down. He's chairman of rec, he's the recreation director. It'd be nice if he can. Yeah, maybe. Have these kids kneel down so we can. Yes. Steve, come.
Everybody else on the back. They're one of our sponsors.
Let's make sure you can see the camera lines, okay?
I got it. Thank you. Thanks for your support.
All right. Maybe just come on up. Let everybody kind of get out and get settled down. All right, I'll go ahead and start. Mayor, council, folks in our audience, I have the pleasure tonight of recognizing Lieutenant Chip Googe for 25 years of loyal and dedicated service with the town of Mount Pleasant. Lieutenant Googe began his career with the town when he was just 19 years old as a community service officer. As soon as he turned 21, he was sworn in as a Mount Pleasant police officer. Lieutenant Googe has worked in several different areas of the agency to include patrol, traffic, the detective office, public information officer, and our accreditation manager. Under Lieutenant Googe's leadership, there have been so many great advances for our town and our police department. A few of these include the implementation of our body-worn camera program, the department's social media page that helps our community stay connected with their officers and provides valuable information during critical incidents and weather events. He helped start our drone program, one of the first in the area that has been used to monitor our large events like the Bridge Run and the search for missing persons. And other agencies have reached out to us learning how we got our program started, and he's been able to help them get theirs started in other communities. As the agency's accreditation manager, Lieutenant Googe was a key factor in our agency being reaccredited and earning the coveted gold standard of excellence. Lieutenant Googe served as the department's public information officer for 5.5 years, earning the respect and trust of the area's local media outlets. He was always on call for major incidents and never once failed to answer my call, no matter the time of day, and respond to the scene of a critical incident to keep the media and our community informed. Over his 25 years of service, Lieutenant Googe has been recognized for excellence by his peers as well as community members. As I was going through his file today, just getting information, I came over letter after letter after letter, just praising his performance since he was 19 to where he stands today. It's incredible work. Lieutenant Googe was recently promoted from the rank of sergeant to his current rank of lieutenant 2 months ago and is in command of the department's traffic team. Chip, I want to congratulate you on 25 years. We are very fortunate to have you serving our town. Thank you.
I need some sanitizer after shaking all those kids' hands.
That's what I did. Is that okay?
Lord,
Hand sanitizer, I know.
This brings us to item 5 on our agenda, approval of the minutes from the December 10th, 2019 Town Council meeting.
Move to approve?
Second.
Is that for the minutes and the financial statement?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6 is public comment. When your name is called, please come forward to the lectern, give your name and address, and you will have 2 minutes. I believe our clock is over here, and you will get a warning. We ask that you please be considerate of everyone who wants to speak and not go over your allotted time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Robert J. Timberman.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, if you could speak from the mic, please, so we can record it. Thank you.
Robert J. Timberman, 2142 Gulf Drive, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I handed in some paperwork, and the reason I handed this in is I've lived on Gulf Drive since 1980. And I watched Annie Laurel Lane go from woods, and there was nothing, and Mr. Sanchez's grandfather was a very good friend of mine. He owned most of that area. Over the years, as you can see by the before photo, it became very blighted. Over 300 tons of trash, and you didn't walk down the street. You didn't go up and back and forth throughout it. I've heard in planning commissions all of the things about conservation, and I'd really like to know what it is we're conserving, because in the community that I grew up in, none of that existed. And then it became this. So the zoning and everything, the changes that were made when you go to the after photo, allowed the improvement of the road with the new street, the new sidewalks, the new areas, and now we have Chadbury and all the other residents that are taking part in the green space, the amenities building that's built down there. And I don't know of any council members that rode down it, but I would encourage you. On this particular tract, there are 32 properties. 30 of those properties are already zoned R3. That's 94% of the property is zoned R3. The request that he has, and obviously in any kind of equation, there's got to be a numeral that makes it worth for Mr. Sanchez to be able to tear down his home, build a home for him and his son. And all he's asking to do is take part in the community that the town council literally helped create. You guys helped us clean this area up. We got rid of the drugs, the police department, Rocco, I mean, right down to the dog named Rocco, I remember. They came down there, they spent their time in the community, and we changed it. And now we can walk up and down it. We can enjoy these areas that we weren't able to for many, many years. It's not that we're asking to just add a bunch of traffic. We're talking about one residence that's literally left to go to an R3 zoning and to be able to partake in what was created. And this is the same that every member within this area
Sir, please
here
finish up.
would like it. They would like to be able to do it. And I asked the council, one final question, what street do you feel
Time's
safe
up.
walking
Sir,
down?
please.
Yes.
Time's up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert S. Timberman.
Robert S. Timberman, 2147 Annie Laura. I'm actually the contractor that installed all those sidewalks, curb and gutter, paved the road, and I actually paid that out of my own pocket. It wasn't like a bank thing. I financed that project personally. Also in the notes on this should be the entire neighborhood, Gulf and Annie Laura, every resident signed a petition in favor of this. I grew up there. I'm a third-generation native of Mount Pleasant. I really like what he wants to do. I know he just wants to join into it. I know that's fair to say, right? Third-generation native. I grew up here. Matter of fact, I grew up with Jake Rambo, believe it or not. But honestly, what he wants to do is for him and his son, and I'm not against it. I'm quite for it. Like I said, I own two of the lots on the street. I built 3 of the homes on the street. And then, we built this project, and then I turned the road back over to you guys, put new stormwater in. I put in 3 new fire hydrants for the fire department on that street, put in a new water main, everything that the city council asked us to do in that, and we ate a lot of that, and I'm totally okay with that. It's just, we cleaned it up, and I'd like to see it keep going that way. It's been a long time in my life that I've actually not seen people walking up and around the street. Now I can sit on my front porch, and there's families and kids with running strollers, running their families around. There's kids with bicycles out back playing in the empty lots. I mean, it's a lot different than what it was. And like I said, I personally, with my truck, towed 300 tons. That's not an exaggeration. I have the receipts to prove it. If you look at that before photo, and I said this before at the last meeting, I personally towed 300 tons of trash out of that area, and to make it what you see in the after photo. That's my time. Thank you very much.
Chad Greer.
Chad Greer, 1606 Marsh Harbor Lane, Mount Pleasant. First off, just want to say thank you for the partnership that we enjoy as a school. I'm the athletic director at Oceanside Collegiate Academy. We have a great partnership with the town, and we're very much appreciative of that and excited to continue that. We're excited about the new stadium project at Carolina Park, adjacent to our property, and from the beginning, we've talked about trying to work with the great relationships we have with the town to make the best use of the total property, our land plus the town's land, for the maximum benefit of the whole community. In that regard, the partnership we enjoy right now is we use the town's fields for our practices and games. The town uses our gym, frankly, more than we do. We also had some police training within our building as well, and we're great with that. The next phase of the project is, for us, is to build a stadium. And we've worked with the town to come up with something we think makes economic sense for both the town and the school. And as part of that, we're just hopeful that the town will recognize the benefits of going to artificial turf in the stadium versus grass, and follow suit with the Citadel, who's just announced replacing their grass with turf, Charleston Southern, who just turfed their stadium, Charleston County, who put turf down at their multipurpose stadium at the Wando campus, the newly announced Berkeley-Hanahan partnership to put turf at their rectangle multipurpose field in Berkeley County, Beaufort County, who just spent passed a $600 million bond to replace every high school rectangle field in that county with turf. I think the benefits of that, from availability, 12-month usage, being able to maximize the benefits of total cost of investment, return on investment, total cost of ownership. I think if you, once you spend the time to evaluate all that, I think you'll agree that turf's the best solution for the stadium. Thank you so much.
Marvin Arnsdorf. Good evening. Marvin Arnsdorf, 3548 Henrietta Hartford Road, Mount Pleasant. I'm the board chairman of Oceanside Collegiate Academy, and I'm here representing the 1,400 parents and the 100 voting students that we have at Oceanside. Our mission at Oceanside is to serve high school students in a small, safe, family-centered environment who seek the opportunity and the challenge of a rigorous curriculum, high academic standards, and elite athletics while earning up to 2 years of college while in high school. Athletics is an integral part of the educational experience at OCA. As an extension of the classroom, participation in sports provides the opportunity to develop self-discipline, leadership skills, loyalty to team, and loyalty to the community. Currently, without our own athletic fields and facilities, Oceanside teams travel off campus to utilize available space to practice and compete. This places a burden not only on our student athletes, but also on their families as they try to balance academics, athletics, and home life. As a charter school, the most significant benefit is being able to offer a high-quality education through our unique and effective model. We pride ourselves on providing something different and entrepreneurial to our school community, instead of the typical traditional one-size-fits-all educational model. Even though Oceanside is a state public high school, we do not receive any assistance from the state or the county to build our school or athletic facilities. And we haven't been granted access to any of the county high school facilities that we as taxpayers have paid for. Therefore, we're looking for a creative win-win shared use scenario where we can partner with the town of Mount Pleasant to create a premier location to host competitive events, camps, clinics, and provide the opportunity for fans to enjoy together and to promote their passion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mark Meyer.
I'm Mark Meyer, 2512 Charter Oaks Drive, Mount Pleasant. I'm here representing, I'm a youth travel soccer coach. Been doing it for 27 years. Right when I got out of the Marine Corps, I started coaching here with Mount Pleasant. Actually, Coach Lundy sort of got me started that many years ago. I'm gray, he's even grayer. But really, what I'm here to ask for is the consideration for artificial turf for this stadium and maybe even other fields in the area. It's primarily for the kids for availability reasons. Carolina Park and Park West, and I believe Patriots Point as well, all closed on December the 6th for overseeding and general upkeep. The fields that we have, there's not enough grass fields, so what happens is there's so much pressure on those Monday through Friday night. They get beat to death, and it's nobody's fault. It's just that, that's how many fields we have. So we have to shut those fields out. I understand that they have to shut them so they can reseed them, resod them, level the grass or the surface back out, and they're beautiful. And those guys do a great job, but the problem is that we're going to beat them up again, starting again on February the 3rd. But we lose 3 months per year for every field that we have because they have to be shut down to maintain. And, it's not good for the kids. Everywhere I go, so like back to what I was saying, I coach travel soccer. I coach in Dallas, pretty much all the way up to New Jersey, down to Miami. I'm all over the place. And so I see a lot of premier facilities. And most of those facilities, even if they have some really nice Bermuda grass fields, they also have artificial turf fields right next door. And the reason I bring that, or right on the same facility, at least a few of them. And the reason I bring that up is, and Coach Lundy will back me up on this, back 20 years ago here in Mount Pleasant Soccer Club at the time, it's got a different name now, used to have like 300 teams that would come in for tournaments. The economic impact of a 300-team tournament on a local economy is staggering. I mean, I could pull the figures if you like and do the accommodations tax and all that. But what happens is those tournaments get canceled for rain sometimes. So now, whenever you're shopping for tournaments, you look where there's artificial fields. And our tournament numbers have really dwindled over the years. We're down to like 100, maybe 90 teams per tournament.
Sure.
So thank you.
Thank you. Ralph Lundy.
Ralph Lundy, 3134 Ball Court, Mount Pleasant. Play ball. Play band. Be involved. Play ball. We can build facilities and fields, or we can build jails. There's no doubt about it. I'm living proof. We have a shortage, in my opinion, of rectangle fields. I want to see kids on the fields playing ball. Any field. Diamonds, rectangle, basketball court. I want to see the marching band. What Mark just said is absolutely on the money. For all the organizations that want to use rectangle fields in Mount Pleasant, I think we have a shortage. We're just growing. We're growing. So are the kids who want to play ball. Now, kids all over the state, all over the U.S., all over the world are playing on artificial turf fields. Believe it or not, if you go to Europe, kids don't play on grass. They play on turf fields, artificial turf, because of the reasons Mark just said. If it rains, we can still play ball. If it rains, the marching band can still practice on a turf field. We got to take care of our youngins. We need to build facilities to keep them involved in great positive activities. Let's do it.
Gear Hanlon.
Lynn, 3865 Faithful Street. I wasn't aware I was speaking, but I'm happy to. Along with these gentlemen, I run a youth lacrosse club in town, and we are really struggling to find fields, along with a lot of other constituents that run club teams in the area. We understand that your programs come first, and I think, you know, the Oceanside guys understand that as well, but it puts a huge damper on us trying to battle for the same fields. You guys need to maintain your fields, and I can't come up with a number, but I'm sure we can all collaboratively come up with it to understand what our shortage is. And there is evidence that turf fields do not cause cancer, so I know that that was a fear of some residents. But we travel to tournaments all over the country. We play on turf fields. There's no rainouts. The other component that soccer has is, in order to run a tournament, you need to have a certain amount of turf fields within your tournament, or else they won't approve you for the tournament to be sanctioned. So I was kind of put on the spot here, but I certainly think that as a constituent of the town, we are at a deficit with fields, and it's just going to increase the level of competition and play for the many people that live here and want to move here. And we can see that with all the folks that just left here winning awards from cross country to the program they've built at Oceanside and Orlando. So thank you.
Matt Job. Wendy Bauerschmidt.
Good evening. Wendy Bauerschmidt, 1320 Woodlake Court. Mayor and Council, tonight you're considering lifting the match requirement for the funding to Housing for All, and I urge you to allow that. I want to thank the Planning Committee of Council for making the recommendation, and the Finance Committee for recommending approval. That funding will allow us to fund operations so that we can focus on projects as we're making major headway, and also on grant applications, because now that we have just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, we're grant eligible. And so I thank you for your support in allowing us to continue with this important mission.
Nicholas Christ.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Christ, 725 Coleman Boulevard. I've lived in the Charleston area my entire life. I had the privilege of traveling to California last year and made an observation about a lot of the facilities in on the West Coast. There was an active adult workout area that I've never seen on this side. And it sort of sparked a void, if you will. So I went under the Ravenel Bridge and started looking around, and I realized that there's a significant amount of space there, and my mind started working, thinking of different ways you could arrange an adult fitness park, but then also build something that's suitable for the entire community. I spoke with Gary Santos and Mr. Rambo, and we collaborated on some ideas, and I put a presentation together to show the council. Some of the things in the presentation includes a calisthenics park, a fitness zone. There's a park in Tampa where what they did is they took the underside of the bridge and they retrofitted it for a dog park. So it's a fenced-in, safe, contained area to where people could let their dogs, basically go wild, while they have a section for adults to participate in calisthenics, yoga, and various other activities. In addition to that, we started brainstorming it some more, and said, well, if you've got an area, we need to expand on the existing children's playground, and perhaps have a water park or an area that's appealing during the summer. And finally, coming into Mount Pleasant, it's a little bit of an eyesore if you look off to the left, so we thought it would be an appropriate area for an artistic entrance, welcome to Mount Pleasant type
Thank you, sir.
piece. Thank you.
Joseph Sanchez.
Good evening, Joseph Sanchez, 2161 Annular Lane. I'm here to speak about my property being subdivided and annexed into Mount Pleasant. Everyone on the street supports the annexation to Mount Pleasant and the rezoning to R3. You have in hand, earlier I was given on an earlier meeting, Planning Board, 20 letters of acceptance regarding that from members of the community on both streets. Most of the lots, as been said earlier, are already R3, so I don't see why there should be an issue with that. Just past summer, 2183, the family members there requested the same thing that I'm asking now, to be annexed in the city of Mount Pleasant and to be rezoned for R3 for family. You set a precedence for that family, allowing them to continue to join Mount Pleasant. I'm just asking to be part of that as well. I don't see where there's hardly any discussion on it. My wife and I, we moved onto that street. We bought it from my grandparents way back in 83 or 84. It was an undeveloped dirt road. It winded through the properties. Later on became separated and divided into one single roadway. Presently it's paved, which has been paved for a number of years. The Timmermans, as they said, they developed the roadway, put in sidewalks, improved the infrastructure and utilities on the property. So it makes it acceptable for more homes to be there. There's fire protection with fire hydrants, water. When we first moved on that property, there was a 2-inch line that ran down that street that served the property homeowners there. I think there were 4 families down there, including ours. It's come a long way. I mean, even from what his pictures, it's come a long way. They don't show what I started out with. Finally, if you don't allow us to do this, please, I cannot remain there. I request the cancellation of annexation and rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kelsey Federal.
Good evening. I'm Kelsey Federal. I live at 839 Law Lane. I am calling to thank you for considering in new business on page 5 of your agenda under A2, improvements to the animal welfare ordinances in our community. The proposed ordinances will do 2 things. They will protect animals and the community from dogs who live on chains. There was a 2013 study by the American Veterinary Medical Association that showed that 76.2% of fatal dog bites between 2000 and 2009 resulted from dogs that were unsocialized, otherwise left outside on chains. The proposed language would minimize that risk to our community members and defines what is humane restraint of dogs in our communities. It also provides a stronger definition of shelter so that both dog owners and law enforcement know what to expect when providing shelter from the elements for animals. The second thing this proposed ordinance will do is provide civil liability protection to Good Samaritans and first responders who act under a reasonable belief that an animal locked in a car is under imminent threat of physical harm or death. We know it gets very hot in Mount Pleasant in the summer. The proposed ordinance requires those folks to follow certain protocols in order to act to protect the animal, but would insulate them from civil liability should the owner of the vehicle have an issue with those folks trying to save their animals. So I thank you for considering this and ask that you do vote to support it and pass it on to the next reading.
Ricky Sullivan.
Good evening. My name's Richard Sullivan. I live at 3482 Turmeric Hill. I've been a resident of Mount Pleasant since 1997 and a professional golf coach and club pro at Bulls Bay Golf Club. I'm also a youth coach in baseball, and I'm the father of 2 athletes in the town, one in which just went to play college soccer in Arkansas, my daughter, and my son plays baseball, basketball, and soccer in town. We travel all over the country. I'm coming from a parent and as a coach of this community. We travel all over the country, from San Diego up to Seattle to New Jersey, all the way down to, we recently just came back from Disney World. And every major facility that we go to, whether it's a lower economic level or a higher, they're all going to artificial turf. The expense up front is about 3 or 4 times more. Over time, it lasts 15 to 20 years. And the communities are putting this in, and they're going, wow, this is costing us some money initially to put it in. But all the major tournaments are wanting to come there, and all the parents are saying, wow, why don't we have this in Mount Pleasant? Everywhere we go, it's a topic of discussion from the parents on the sidelines. Why don't we have this in Mount Pleasant? And I'm here in favor of that. Thank you.
George Freeman.
George Freeman, 1450 Bowman Road, Director of Community Activity for CAGE. I'm here tonight, along with members of the community, to request denial of the rezoning of 2164 Annie Laurel Lane. I've spoken before the Planning Commission and the Planning Committee, and thankfully both have denied this request. We're here tonight to make it official as a community that we felt this issue was resolved some 13 years ago. We as a community have been following this overlay zoning for over 13 years now. However, there have always been a few that have been requesting to rezone it. If you continue to allow them to rezone, this will eventually destroy the overlay district. There are other people in the community who own 1 and 2 acres of land. If they could come and rezone theirs, then you'll have a bunch, but you have 6 houses on every acre if you can continue to do this. So tonight, we are requesting that hopefully you send a message that this is the last time this will ever come before council again, that the overlay exists, it's in the comprehensive plan, it's in the new comprehensive plan. This is what the citizens of the Sweetgrass Basket overlay want. This is what the citizens of Mount Pleasant say they want. So please deny this request so we don't have to go through this anymore. Thank you.
Thomasina Stokes Marshall.
I don't see her.
It could be.
Oh, there she is.
We dumped it, but it's in the county, so we don't control the county, but they're annexing it.
Before you begin, I just want to acknowledge your years of service on this body, and thank you very much, Thomasina. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Haney and council members, members of the audience. I am here this evening representing the Housing for All Mount Pleasant Association. Prior to my leaving council in 2015, the current mayor at that time, Mayor Page, asked me to head up a committee to address the need for affordable housing in the town of Mount Pleasant. I was fortunate enough to have enough of our residents to agree to serve on that committee, and we worked for over 2 years to gather information that would support the need for affordable housing in the town of Mount Pleasant. We have, I believe it's 12 to 13 members who currently serve on that board, and we have become a 501c3 and applying for funds that would help us to address those needs for affordable housing. And I know when we say affordable housing, a lot of people have their own perception of what affordable housing is. But affordable housing is needed by a number of people in different categories. And I'll just run through a list of some of them, which are teachers, our local businesses that hire people, residents that come from out of town, our restaurants that need workers, our hospitals that need workers, students, our senior citizens, and even town employees who have to travel from out of town. The percentage of people that travel from Goose Creek, Mount Pleasant, Somerville, and other areas to work here. It adds to the transportation that impacts our roadway and our infrastructure on a daily basis. So I wanted to appeal to the town of Mount Pleasant council members and mayor, as well as our residents, to recognize the need for affordable housing. We're fortunate where we do have several developers who have agreed to collaborate with us to address this need, and we ask council if they would give consideration to the appeal to help bring about the reality of affordable housing in the town of Mount Pleasant. I thank you.
Alicia Kitchener.
Hi, I'm Alicia Kitchener. I live at 2152 Gulf Drive, Mount Pleasant. I've been a resident of Mount Pleasant for all my life. I lived on Gulf Drive practically all of my life. I am in favor of 2161 Annie Laura Lane being rezoned. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Reigart.
I'm Route Reigart. I feel in a bit of a minority here, but let me tell you who I am. I have a 50-year experience in pediatrics. I'm a professor emeritus in pediatrics at the Medical University of South Carolina. I am recognized as a national expert between children's health and the environment. And I have worked closely with an organization that recently assisted New York City in converting playing fields back from plastic fields to natural turf. I feel like children and adolescents should never play on plastic fields. And these are some of the reasons. There are multiple adverse physical effects. There are increased rates of knee and ankle injuries on plastic fields. Turf toe is a problem with plastic fields. Abrasions to the skin, which I'll come back to, are a problem on plastic fields. And very important in South Carolina, heat injury. When it's 90 degrees out, a plastic field goes up to 150 to 180 degrees, which puts children at risk from heat injuries of a variety of sources, including dehydration and heat injury. As a second step, infections. Partially because of the abrasions that occur on these fields, there's a risk to skin infections, particularly MRSA infections, which are potentially life-threatening. There are chemical injuries. The infield on these fields...
Sir.
Okay.
Please finish up, sir.
One more minute. The infield on these fields has been shown to be toxic in many cases, and the disinfectants needed to care for them are also toxic to children.
Thank you, sir.
No child should ever be on a plastic field.
That's all. That brings public comment to an end. Yes, you may. That's all right. And then after that, we are going to take a short recess while we set up for the State of the Town address. Some of you who are elected officials, we have seats for you up here with your name on them. I would appreciate if you would come to them. That way I can find you during my talk. I appreciate that. Ms. Sullivan, name, address, 2 minutes, please.
Yes, sir. Pat Sullivan, 1002 Plantation Court in Mount Pleasant. Last January, at the annual retreat, council held a visioning session for what you wanted, what you would like the town to look like, to be like. The floor was totally open to all and any suggestions. I made notes, the highlights of which I just passed out to you all. I would venture to say that you would agree with most of these ideas. I can't imagine that you would not want to make any of these a reality. Now you get a chance at the visioning because you're beginning to review and address the new 10-year comprehensive plan. There are so many great ideas for the future in this plan, ideas that come from not just the comp plan committee, but the planning commission and thousands of town of Mount Pleasant citizens who attended multiple open houses and took online surveys to document their feedback. Something that I've heard over and over again in the years that I've been attending council and committee meetings is, hey, that's a great idea, but we don't have the money. And away the thought goes. What I'm asking you all this evening is to find the political will to find ways, and that includes money, to make the new comprehensive plan a reality. We owe it to our town. Thank you.
Did you want to make a comment? You may, sure. That'll work perfectly, and then we'll take a recess after your 2 minutes.
My name is Margaret Kelly, 715 Mildenhall Road in Mount Pleasant. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm here to inform you about open carry legislation that's currently in the State House. As you know, the session started today, and it's on the Senate agenda. It's on the Senate agenda because it was recalled from committee the day before the session ended, which bypassed public input in subcommittee and deliberation in committee. So I'm with a group called Arm in Arm. It's a nonprofit that formed after Emmanuel, composed of gun owners and non-gun owners. So the status of the bill is it was not pulled today. It would make lawful public open carry, no permit, no fingerprint check, no training on weapon use or safety, no education on state or federal firearm law. It would also drop the current requirement for permit to carry concealed and allow non-residents to do the same. And this concerns us greatly. It is opposed by the South Carolina Police Chiefs Association by unanimous vote. It's opposed by Chief Keel of SLED. And we've been working closely with domestic violence groups and faith coalitions. So appealing to you to ask, when you're working on your various committees, what impact would open carry have in Mount Pleasant? Would it impact the economy? Would it impact tourism, public life for your constituents, for yourselves, your family members, and for our children? We just got a response from the Municipal Association of South Carolina, and if any of you are attending, I would like you to mention it while you're up there. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We will now take a recess until 7:05, when we will pick up with the agenda as the special announcement of the State of the Town address as a public hearing, and we are in recess.
Versus that.
We're at
Bubba,
that
good to see
point
you,
of the
man.
agenda,
Calling me out like
and
that.
Your seat right there. All right.
Oh, wrong seat.
Yeah, don't take my seat.
What would be right where? About
Photobombing me.
Oh, gosh.
I would like to end the recess and bring the town council meeting back to order. At this time, I would like to introduce our mayor, Mayor Will Haney. I would like to remind everyone one more time to make sure that phones are silenced so that we can give the proper attention to Mayor Haney and his state of this town address. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you for being with us, those of you who are here and those who are watching either on television or on live stream. Members of Town Council, distinguished guests, including Councilman Herb Sass of Charleston County Council, fellow Mayor Miriam Green of Allendale, Mayor Jimmy Carroll of the Isle of Palms just texted me he's in a committee meeting that ran long. He could not be here. Chairman Rick Crosby of Mount Pleasant Waterworks, Mac Jenkinson, a commissioner of Waterworks, former South Carolina First Lady Ann Edwards, for whom the boulevard leading to these chambers is named, and most importantly to you, the citizens of Mount Pleasant. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's begin a new decade together. The state of the town is sound. Our finances are strong. We concluded our last fiscal year with an operating surplus. Our bond rating is AAA. Our crime rate remains low, as was just reported. We've been named the most desirable place to live in South Carolina by a national publication. We're investing tens of millions of dollars in capital improvement projects. And we're on the verge of a new, viable, attainable housing workforce development in the city, in the town, within the city limits of the town, that requires no public money. I think that's worth a little bit of an applause. I also have the privilege of addressing you tonight with the most diverse town council in the town's history. And for the first time, 4 of our 8 council members are ladies. And for this, we can be very proud. We welcome new council members Brenda Corley, Laura Hyatt, Howard Chapman, and Jake Rambo. I know that with council members Tom O'Rourke, Guangming Whitley, Kathy Landing, and Gary Santos, we will have a respectful and deliberative council focused on making our town proud. We are obviously doing a lot of things right, and now let's keep it that way. Let's talk about growth. The Lowcountry region is experiencing explosive growth. It is our biggest challenge. Our regional infrastructure, transportation, and drainage lags behind. The combination of natural beauty and the things we do right as a community drive our popularity through the roof. How we manage and plan for this growth will determine if it is a blessing or if it is a curse. The days when Mount Pleasant was just a bedroom community with a scenic creek and a short drive to the beaches, those days are over. Now Mount Pleasant has become a major influence in the Lowcountry, the 4th largest town in South Carolina, and a municipality that is coming into our own. The presence of so many regional leaders here tonight shows the importance of Mount Pleasant regionally. County Council Chairman Summey and Councilman Swears, Mayor Tecklenburg, and new Charleston City Council member Marie Del Chapo, whose district faces ours across the rivers, and Mayor Pat O'Neill of Sullivan's Island would have been here tonight, except for travel or their council actually meeting as we are. So on behalf of Town Council and our citizens, I thank you, fellow leaders, for your respect for Mount Pleasant. We share a lifeline of just a few roads leading away from the coast, and we share those roads during hurricane evacuations. We're all in this together regionally because wind, water, and unfortunately traffic don't stop at municipal boundaries. Mount Pleasant has taken a regional leadership role in implementing measures to slow and manage growth, and we won't stop. So where are we now? Our first responsibility is public safety. Our police and fire departments are accredited and are under the capable leadership of Chiefs Carl Ritchie and Mike Mixon. Mount Pleasant was named one of the 15 safest places in the country and second in South Carolina. Our public services workers under Jody Peel have distinguished themselves in storms, in floods, in the big events that we have in town, but also in cleaning up our town every day with a smile and an attitude and just this sunshine attitude that our citizens tell us about all the time. Our recreation department, led by Steve Gurgic, is accredited and is thriving. Brad Morrison is leading our transportation department in road improvements perhaps unparalleled in Mount Pleasant history, including the long-awaited completion of Coleman Boulevard, beginning the widening of Park West Boulevard improvements, progressing with our transportation grid plan, working closely with the county on Highway 41 improvements. We just cut the ribbon on Shem Creek Park Phase 3, our beautiful pedestrian walkway that goes over the water. The town hall gym has just been replaced, so now our residents have another place to recreate. And we put on the first annual Our Community, Our Children Forum for the greater community to help us deal with the opioid crisis, human trafficking, and bullying, and we will have the second annual meeting in March. And these are just some of the things we have done. A year and a half ago, from this podium, I put forth the leadership principle for us to follow for this moment in Mount Pleasant's history. I call it the Palmetto Principle. It has 3 tenets: protect, plan, and restore. When 4 of our council members and I began these terms in 2017, the growth was so fast, we had to act quickly to protect the look and feel of the Mount Pleasant we all know and love. And together, we have delivered. How? We purchased the Wando Shrimp Dock to protect the last large processing site for our shrimping fleet. We played a role in protecting Boone Hall, which is not within our boundaries, but certainly is the heart of the East Cooper community, at least from the Mount Pleasant perspective. It is protected with a conservation easement funded by Charleston County Greenbelt Bank, and the State Conservation Bank. And because of regional and state cooperation, Boone Hall Plantation will never be developed. We have protected our trees with stiffer regulations and increased tree buffer requirements. We have protected the Highway 41 corridor from proposed designs inconsistent with our residents' best interest and their needs. We have protected our marine environment and seafood supply with the first comprehensive plastic packaging ordinance passed by a major municipality. Now, in order to prevent the state from nullifying the plastics ordinances of all local governments, we must work together to standardize these across the Lowcountry. And while we're talking about it, why don't we host those meetings right here in this town hall? What have we planned? We have continued to plan the design and financing of our first big drainage improvement project in the old part of town where it is needed now, but we're addressing the future flooding resilience of this town through the committee, the standing committee that council has voted to form called our Flood Resilience Committee. We have an economic development strategic plan that will be passed in a few months to ensure that we build a 21st century economy in Mount Pleasant, which includes the economic development necessity of attainable workforce housing for our workforce to include police officers, firefighters, government employees, teachers, nurses, and hospitality workers so vital to our region. We will plan to take care of our people, our economy, and our natural resources and environment with purpose, with focus, and with courage. What have we restored? By passing the Lowcountry's first full-scale growth management plan that includes building permit allocation, we've restored sanity and sustainability to an out-of-control growth rate. We've restored a sense of hope in our residents that their voices are heard. And when it comes to controlling development, it can be done. We've restored emphasis on the heart and soul of our community, things that add meaning and enjoyment to life, such as art on the half shell, the music and art program in Town Hall, and the belief that in the not-too-distant future, we will have an arts center in the town of Mount Pleasant. And by the demand of our fine citizens, we have restored civility, respect, and unity of purpose to local government. But the Palmetto Principle is not a vision, it is a working tool to help us proceed toward our vision of our town. Going ahead, our vision is of a vibrant community in which our citizens flourish, they enjoy a high quality of life, and they recognize their town when they see it. As we go forward, we'll use these principles to protect the low-country, suburban, coastal distinctiveness and sense of place of Mount Pleasant. We'll protect the unique natural resources that are in and around our town, and we will nourish and protect the heart and soul of our community through art, through music, and through our hand-in-hand approach to the opioid crisis, human trafficking, and child abuse. For as the Bible says, what does it prosper us if we gain the whole world but lose our very soul? We will plan for concurrency between infrastructure capacity and growth. We will plan for flood resiliency, for economic growth so our citizens can live and work in the town of Mount Pleasant. We will plan for the fiscal responsibility for Mount Pleasant as we wean the town from dependence on housing construction that our economy and our public revenues have been based on for so long. An exciting thing that we will do is that with the private foundation and with the Patriots Point Foundation, we will plan and build a landside home for our National Medal of Honor Museum and Heritage Center and a home for the Medal of Honor Society, which is the recipients and their legacy. Mount Pleasant is the home of our nation's heroes, and students will be coming here from all over to the town of Mount Pleasant to learn about selfless service and patriotism. And, you've all been waiting for this, we will plan the future of Mount Pleasant by revising and passing the all-important new comprehensive plan which many of you in this room have worked to produce. We will restore water quality in our rivers by moving to the implementation phase of our Shem Creek Advisory Committee report, and we will work with Mount Pleasant Waterworks to remove septic tanks which are polluting our waterways, and we will restore green space at every opportunity. All of this, we hope, is infinite thinking, because infinite thinking is continuous progress toward a vision. The work of infinite goals is never over. The moment of choosing is upon us. What got us here won't get us there. We must resist finite thinking because Mount Pleasant is at an ideological crossroads. Author Simon Sinek writes, "Racking up finite wins does not lead to something more infinite. The infinite view isn't just about building heights and densities, but about whether we, the people of Mount Pleasant, will decide what our town will be, or if we will follow the well-worn path that every other growing city takes. It takes courage to lead, to make decisions counter to the current standards, and it takes the courage to ignore the pressures from outside parties who are not investors in our beliefs or in our just cause," writes author Sinek. Our just cause is to lead toward the vision of our town that we know is shared by young and old, by new residents, long-term residents, and by natives. That vision is of a healthy community that respects our past while we embrace our future. We must resist the urge to grow for growth's sake, just because that's what thriving municipalities are supposed to do. We will carry this torch of leadership relentlessly for our citizens, and we will carry it in council chambers. We will carry this torch in regional relationships, and we will carry it with new strength and confidence into court if we must, but we will do it. Consider the sweetgrass basket. It's beautiful to behold and good for useful utilitarian purposes for one reason. It's woven together, and it was put that way with love and care. It keeps both its beauty and purpose as long as it stays woven together. But when you pull that sweetgrass basket apart carelessly, it loses both its beauty and its usefulness. So let's walk boldly and optimistically into our future, woven together in unity, respect, and in purpose. And as we steer our community over the horizon of time, let's heed the words of General Omar Bradley. Let us set our course by the stars, not by the lights of every passing ship. God bless you, God bless Mount Pleasant, and God bless America. Thank you. We will now take a 5-minute recess while I move around to the other side. Thank you very much, and those of you who have to leave. Thank you.
How are you? Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. What was that? Did you see that? It was like some weird noise that was going on. Oh. Yeah. Huh.
And embarrassed to them somehow they couldn't figure it out.
There's no item on the agenda you want to talk about?
It's okay. Question.
It's kind of juggling. And I was telling, I said, I think it took me 2 weeks to get all the acreage for the park down there given to us. It was amazing how quick that happened. Now we're asking for the dragon piece and then dragon piece. They don't know what they're doing. I'm good. You? But I'm trying. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Everything's good before Thursday. Yeah, big round. So pleasure to be there. Yeah. It's certainly good.
Hey, how's it going, man? Good to see you. Hello. Hey, how are you?
At 11:30 last night. I didn't have too much.
I grabbed the wrong phone. I thought that was my phone. That's GM's phone.
I'm sure, I wouldn't know, but you get to a point where losing one ain't so bad.
It's better. You get re-energized. You fall out with the Astros. I couldn't believe it. And they turn around and never fires DJ Hinch, and I couldn't believe it.
And you hate to use the excuse every team does it. I don't know the level. Boston's about to go. It's really strong to it.
I didn't read up on it. How did they do it?
What they were doing was using their replay. You see when there's a
Quick bathroom break.
they call into their folks and they who are looking at the play, deciding whether to change. Using this.
I'm embarrassed because you said you get the head
They're using these methods. So they put it on ordinance and all these things, and teams are just going back and forth. I was so old every team.
You have this thing as old as you
I was so old of them. I know Mount Pleasant Polo.
I got a ton of them. I mean, you got to figure 20 years, but yeah, you don't need to ask for it. What committee you on?
I'm gonna ask you. I'm going to the referee. I went so walked around the Jones Center last week and was talking about. Oh, learn more. It was the best time. I had the best time doing it. So anyway, but then someone suggested all staff meetings. So I'm going to staff meeting next Thursday.
I've been going to all those. I'm the council rep for the senior center, so I go to that, and that's always a treat. But yeah, I mean, I go to their they have little things where they cook, for staff cooks. I go in and sit in with them. I'm always one of the places where the staff are, because that's where it starts. And you get to know all them, it's good. So, I mean, look what they did. They shut the fields down during the summer when the kids are out of school. Can't use the ball fields. They shut them down during December during Christmas break to go to grass bags. So when the kids are out of school. These guys are kids. We could be bringing in a lot of revenue by using these facilities. And you know what? That thing he's talking about, there's so many other doctors that would be bumped at. I'm going to play on stuff like that. I went up and played on a turf field. My kids got coached football. We won a state championship.
Yeah.
It was like grass. It wasn't that real.
All right, we will be reconvening in just a minute.
I didn't even know it was turf. And I went to tie my shoes. I was like, damn, it's in grass.
No, it's great. No, it's not like carpet laid on concrete.
All right, it's
Let's see, we are at consent agenda items, right?
I keep grabbing that. See, I grabbed your phone and started to walk over your phone. I thought it was mine.
You're like wrong kids on the cover. Wrong family on the cover.
Back to work.
We are back in session. We just completed item 4A as noticed that began at 7:05. Where we left off would have been item 7, consent agenda items. There are no consent agenda items. Item 8, planning. Mr. Olma.
Good evening.
That is not Mr. Alma.
That is not Mr. Alma.
Even I know that.
This first request before you is to annex and zone a property at 2161 Annie Laura Lane. This property is currently in the county. It's in the county, it's in the Mount Pleasant Overlay District, and it's also in the underlying zoning in the county is S3. It's a Special Management 3 district, which is similar to our community conservation zoning.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. We are in discussion. Does anyone have anything to say? As the chair, I just want to say one thing. I will have to vote no on this, and my no is based on not so much the application, but the aspect that we know from the numbers that certain values of homes cost our taxpayers and cost our treasury more than they deliver in tax revenues. So this piecemeal annexation of properties we know might be to the benefit of a new annexation, but to the detriment of the rest of our taxpayers. We need to have a more comprehensive approach, so I will unfortunately be voting no on this case. Anyone else? All right, we have a motion to approve item 8A1. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
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 Yep, okay. Who are the noes? 4 noes? All right, so the motion passes by a vote of 5-4.
Okay, so the second part of this request is to request R3 zoning district.
If the comprehensive plan calls for community conservation, so if it were automatically annexed in, it would be assigned to community conservation. And the overlay is not automatically applied, so they would have to request to be included in the overlay district. The request before you is to bring the subject parcel in, zone it R3, which is in character with the other parcels that you see in brown on the zoning map. All of the parcels that are green are community conservation.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. We are in discussion.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well,
I just want to applaud your politeness, so just aside, though. Thank you.
Mayor, members of council, before you are some pictures of this neighborhood before and after a number of things were done. I was on the Planning Commission when there was a presentation to us about cleaning up the neighborhood, number one, and improving a number of lots on the far end of Gulf Drive. And Gulf Drive, by the way, did not connect at that time with Annie Laura Lane. When the property owner brought that to us, we recognized, number one, this is not necessarily an ideal place as it exists, but we can make it an ideal place even though it's relatively close to our public works site. And no objection to Mr. Peel, but there are issues living next to a public works site that has all of the garbage trucks being cleaned and brought in on a daily basis as well as other things. So the property owners took a chance. They took a chance to improve a part of our neighborhood. And I say neighborhood because this is, as was mentioned, in the Conservation District, it's kind of like some of the areas which we call settlement communities, because people are wanting to bring in their families to live on larger lots, and Mr. Sanchez wants to do that on this site. You can see the new sidewalks. You can see, you can't see the water lines, but they're underground. You can see how substantially improved the area is. And this is just another piece of that. And I think we're going to hear that like 94 properties in the area have already been brought in, and we need to continue that process here to make it part of Mount Pleasant and not be a donut hole any longer. That's all I can add.
Mr. Rambo.
So the slide that we have up on the screen just shows that, how many properties along Annie Laura Lane have had that R3 or have that R3 residential zoning now. And so in my opinion, I mean, you can't tell all of someone's neighbors that, they can come in the town, have the R3, and then single out one parcel to say, oh no, we're going to put our foot down. I understand the need for community conservation and to, at some point, have a stopping place. But to me, this whole street is already this way. That's my reasoning.
All right. Anyone else? Ms. Landing?
One thing I think we often hear is, if you do this, it might set a precedent that you then can't go back. It's opening a Pandora's box. Clearly, the example was used tonight that that's already what had happened on Annie Laura Lane. I go back to the fact that it's very hard when people own property. It's the whole concept of your home is your castle, and I would say your land is that too. And in this case, where we really, as Councilman Chapman said, we want to bring as much land into the town as possible because there are some very good things that come from that. And this is an example where I don't believe just because something is done on Annie Laurel that matches the rest of a lot of other requests on that street, that it necessarily is going to open up a Pandora's box elsewhere. If it does, we'll have to look at that at that time, but I don't think this one resident should be punished because of what could happen down the road. So that's my thought on that.
Other comments? I will pick up where I left off. We are facing the stark reality of what it costs to deliver services to single-family residential, and we are, having a budget meeting tomorrow to dive deep on that. So if we know that homes of this value cost the town, which is the taxpayers, not us, more in services than they bring in, when we subdivide this way, then we're doubling that. And so I have a hard time having a budget meeting tomorrow talking about how bad single-family residential development is for the town from a fiscal standpoint, and yet we're going to double down on that cost by allowing more subdivision than we had designed. And I know these are hard decisions. It's the hardest part of local government, but that's just my perspective on this particular one. Are we ready to vote? I think we better do a roll call vote. The motion is to approve. That is the motion.
Miss Landing.
Aye.
Miss Landing votes yes. Mr. O'Rourke.
Aye.
Mr. O'Rourke votes yes. Mr. Rambo.
Aye.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Santos.
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Miss Whitley.
No.
Miss Whitley votes no. Mr. Chapman.
Aye.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Miss Corley.
No.
Miss Corley votes no. Miss Hyatt.
No.
Miss Hyatt votes no. Mayor Haney.
No. So by a 5-4 vote, the zoning is approved. This brings us to item A3, which is the first reading.
Move to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. For the record's sake, and for those tuning in at home, this involves the proposed affordable housing, workforce housing development, unless I read it wrong. Nope, that's it. Yes, sir. Mr. Santos.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out, because it's not here, that I know the last one that we did, I think, was only 10 years for it to remain affordable housing before I guess it could go back out on the market, but this one is 80 years. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands it.
75.
Oh, 75, excuse me, 75 years. Okay.
Do I hear 70?
Yeah, but 75 years, which I think is fantastic, that it's going to last that long and not 10 years like the first one did.
Right. Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
I'm sorry to keep asking to speak, Mayor, but this is a great project for the town, and one of the things that I ran on dealt with workforce housing, and it's very important to the town. I want to point out two things. Number one, part of the 41 project will be coming right by here. And so we've made sure, working with the developers, working with their consultants, that that is taken into account, because they're going to need 90 feet of right-of-way. And certainly workforce housing is critical. The 41 is real critical. And we need to make sure that everything done has been done to protect it, to protect 41 from being able to move forward here. The second thing I would like to suggest, I don't think we can require this, although we are partially improving a impact statement. We're revising the impact statement, traffic impact statement, is that approximately 30 feet of property along the frontage will be needed for the Highway 41 improvements, because we split 41 here for northbound traffic. 30 feet is a good bit, but that 30 feet, I believe, the developers have agreed to make sure that that area is not in any way part of the development. I would like to add and request one other issue, and that is that if during the construction and all, if we could get that 30 feet donated. They're not going to be, they've already agreed they don't want to use it for their, for the development of the project. It's part of the land, obviously, but if if, as part of the impact statement, amendment that we are approving, I would like to put that out there as a possibility.
Yes, Ms. Lanning.
This would probably be the only opportunity to talk about it, so I'm going to say real quickly that I, too, am very excited about this project, starting off 2020, where we're not only talking about some exciting economic development projects before long, but first and foremost, we're talking about Housing for All's goal and mission, which this body started, as you heard. And some people have said, well, maybe 42 units isn't so much. There's a whole lot of need out there. But for those 42 families, it means the world. And I think that's the most important thing, is you take this step, and then we can work on others and others and others, and do it in the right way, a way that doesn't risk taxpayer money, and a way that actually helps the experts, the developers who know how to build things, create a legacy of something good that they've done. So there's goodwill built for them, as well as the possibility of actually making a little money on something that normally people think you can't. So I'm just thrilled that we're voting on this tonight. Thank you for bringing it.
Yes, sir, Mr. O'Rourke.
Just briefly, I think it's important to recognize Mr. Tony Berry, who's here right now, as the person who had the first vision of doing this, and knowing that it was a tremendous need of the town. Important enough for you to mention, important enough for all of us to be working on, and I just wanted to say thank you to Tony from here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I want to add, I went out, spent a Friday afternoon with y'all on the site. I had a laundry list of questions, everything from transfer fees to prohibiting non-owner occupied to investors. Does money go back into the kitty when someone sells and profits on it? To trip reductions of traffic. Is there any public money involved? And all the right answers were given. And the big question was, is this scalable? Can it be repeated? And the answer was yes, we can do this elsewhere in the town of Mount Pleasant. So I think it checks all the boxes. If no one else wants to speak, are we ready to vote? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
20003.
This moves us to item number 4, an ordinance to rezone.
This is a request to rezone a parcel on Marginal Road. It's actually 2 parcels. There's a front parcel and a back parcel. They're currently zoned R1. It would be the frontage road across from Wando High School. This is the future land use, which is low-density neighborhood. And the entire area is zoned R1, but the request is to zone community conservation, which would permit a mobile home by right. There was a mobile home there for many years. In 2017, due to dilapidation, it was removed. And the owners, because they put the mobile home there by right in the county and were able to annex in, they were fine until they removed it, and now it's an issue to replace it. And so they need to rezone to community conservation in order to replace the manufactured home that was on the site years ago. And this is an image of that parcel, but I wanted to kind of touch on that whole area, and I mentioned it with the first, with the 2161. The fact that when you have an automatic annexation, you're assigned a zoning designation based on your future land use. And this area was designated as R1, and perhaps at the time R1 allowed a manufactured home. And those ordinances changed over time. But this area is probably, as far as character and development patterns, is probably more in line with the community conservation. These are just some images of surrounding properties with manufactured homes. And so the request certainly isn't out of character with the entire area.
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
First reading, ordinance number 20004.
Item number 5, please.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a text amendment that was brought to staff's attention, and we worked with the Planning Commission over the period of several months in discussions, and then we had a public hearing. I just want to real quick give you a rundown of what our existing ordinance requires and what is proposed in this ordinance change. So right now, the provision for our critical line buffer ordinance is that you can establish a vision corridor, which is a clearing for you to have a view from your yard or house. So the current ordinance states that. It implies that it would be for a residential property only because it says it gives you a view from your yard and your house. The proposed ordinance would allow a vision corridor to be established on any parcel where a critical line buffer is allowed. So if you have a critical line buffer and it's been approved and you submit a plan to clear a vision corridor, then we can review that and approve it based on the fact that you meet all the standards and because you have a critical line buffer. This also allows you, and the ordinance is currently a little bit ambiguous on this, but it allows you to clear an adjoining property owner's vision corridor for your benefit. And we have a specific case where that's been requested, and we've actually, tried to interpret it without having the ordinance clearly stated. And so what we wanted to do is to state it clearly that you can do this, but you have to have written consent by the property owner. And so that we wanted to make that clear in the ordinance. How the vision corridor is established, right now it's a vertical corridor not to exceed 33% of the total buffer length. This implies a single uniform clearing. We had some cases where we had some applicants want to break that up into increments, and the ordinance wasn't very clear on that. And we discussed it with the Planning Commission, and we originally thought we wanted to maintain it and just make the language stronger, where it's one single uniform unbroken portion. But through the process with Planning Commission and public input, we kind of came to the conclusion, and we were directed to revise the ordinance to say, no, you can cut this up into increments so long as you don't do it no less than 25 feet. So you can cut up the proposed ordinance says you can cut up your vision corridor no less than 25 feet so long as the overall vision corridor does not exceed that 33% that's currently allowed. So that overall amount would not change. How the vision corridor is measured, currently it's based on the 33% total buffer length. How it's specifically measured is somewhat confusing. You don't always have a perfectly rectangular shaped lot. We often have irregular lots, and if you look at some of the lots that we look at along the marsh, they're not real easy. And so what we wanted to do was clean that language up. And Jeff's going to give you some examples in just a minute of what that looks like. But basically what we're proposing in this ordinance is that the vision corridor would be measured as the 33% of the total buffer area. This requires the use of near perpendicular lines to define the sides of the clearing. And then last, how the vision corridor is protected. Right now, we just state that it needs to be clearly delineated on all development plans and plats. What we're proposing in the draft text is that it would be clearly delineated and be memorialized on a recorded plat. And then if for some reason that changed several years down the road, the property owner would have to come in, they would have to re-record their new vision corridor, and then they would need to reinstate the buffer that has been previously cleared, and that would be at staff's discretion as to how that, we already have terms in place as to how that buffer would need to be reinstated, and so we would use those provisions to do that. This is a very basic example of what we're looking at when we talk about measuring the corridor. So this is a perfectly square lot. Say you have a 120-foot critical line buffer. There's your OCRM critical line. You have a 50-foot critical line buffer now per our November 2018 ordinance. And then you have the outer edge of the critical line buffer. 1/3 of that buffer would be 40 feet, and that's what that would look like. And it's 40 feet. How we're proposing that changes is measured by the area. So the total buffer area is 120 feet by 50 feet. That's 6,000 square feet. 33% of that would be 2,000. And that's what it looks like. So essentially, we're not proposing an ordinance that increases the area to be cleared. We're just looking at an easier way for staff to look at these when they come in for us to review. And so that's how we would like to begin measuring these. And then we have kind of a not so regular shaped lot, but this is what we typically get. And here's an example of that. And so you can see that these lots 1 and 2 are irregular shaped. And right now, how we measure that is not real clear, whether we do it through the critical line buffer or the inner edge of it. And so perhaps we could look down the center and take a measurement using that and do an average. And this is just to give you an idea of what it looks like on a, at the staff level, what we would typically get. We wouldn't normally get those square, nice, clean lots that you saw earlier. And so what could happen with the area was, if we go with the proposed ordinance, we would perhaps, your area would become more narrow depending on the length. And so those are the things we would look at.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 5 and a second.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Because I know I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
Mayor, I'm not sure how many of my fellow council members read a letter objecting to this that I think we all were sent. And I'm not sure if staff had seen it, but there was some pretty good arguments in it. In the planning committee, this looked like a good idea. And even after reading the letter, I still thought it was a fairly good idea, but I would like to have, if we could, some rebuttal, if you will, by the staff of that letter. And I'm not sure if they've received it or not, but if we could have a rebuttal from them on that letter, I would feel much better voting for it again like I did in the committee.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mr. Chapman, the question was whether or not, excuse me, today's method and changing it to measuring area versus length would allow more clearing. We showed you the example specifically on a perfect lot. That might be Kansas, and you wouldn't have buffers like this out there anyway. So doing the math either way on a perfect rectangle, it is the same vision corridor and the amount of clearing wouldn't differ. On the later example where it becomes more complicated, we still believe that the way we've been applying the distance and then using area, we'd be at the same result. Clearly though, from lot to lot to lot, the vision corridor area can be different. So they won't be uniform, but staff's belief is that the method is simpler. So what an applicant would do is do the calculation, no matter how crenulated that critical line buffer is, they would provide square footage total. They would then say 33% of that is X, and staff would then say, show us your calculations and that you meet that requirement. Today there's a lot of wrangling and arguing over angles of the sides and which part you measure from. We think this would be simpler to administer and more clear and yield the same results.
That answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Elma. And I, like I said, I just wanted that on the record that there was some discussion.
Thank you.
By the council about the letter and the fact that our staff has given us the answer I thought we were going to get, but I didn't want to be the one making that.
So we're clarifying it, but we're not,
Yes, sir.
we're not lessening the buffer requirements.
Yes, sir. And that's the key. We're not lessening it at all.
All right, we have a motion to approve item 5. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion to, yes, sir.
That was
I
me.
think Ms.
That was me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think at committee, did we discuss, which we might want to mention publicly, what would be allowed to be cut, what's saved? I think that's a big concern.
There are limits
that was not mentioned tonight,
on the
but the
nature
limits
of the
on what they
trees
can take out.
themselves. Within the vision corridor, there are limits on what can be cut and removed. And we also have requirements for retaining stumps and trying to allowing sort of a balance between somebody wanting a view, but also looking out for the natural environment as well. And so the ordinance specifies those same things.
All right,
Is
thank you.
there-
Good
Mr.
point.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Is there freedom in the language about invasive species, invasive plants?
Not yet in this particular language, but it's something that was raised by the Planning Commission, and staff's going to do a follow-up text amendment to focus specifically on vines and invasives and how you deal with those. So that's a follow-up.
Good point. Real good point. All right, we prepare to vote. All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
First reading ordinance number 20005.
This brings us to item 6, approval of a request by Legacy Patriots Point LLC for a 1-year extension of vested rights.
Move to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion to approve, and we have a second. May I ask, I guess, the chair of the committee, what exactly, what is Legacy Patriots Point LLC?
So, so this property, but basically under state law, there is a right for these 1-year renewals to come, and so this is just one of those 1-year renewals. So it comes before us, but we are basically required to approve, I believe. That was the impression that I got from
Yes,
staff.
unless your ordinances
Unless there's
have
an ordinance
changed.
change, right.
However, it is subject to a vote, and there is no vote where the only vote is yes. We know that. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So state law requires us to approve this, so why do we vote on it?
That's not,
It's within the ordinance spelled out in the requirements that it has to be an official
Am I-
action.
Did I hear that
I've
incorrectly?
been asking that question for 4 years. If it comes for a vote, I'll go out there and say without practicing law, it can't come for a vote if the only answer is yes. This is not the Soviet Union. You know, you can vote no.
It's just weird.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
If our ordinances change in a significant way, then whether or not the rights continue to vest,
Then you have a yes or no vote. Actually, it would be no, you couldn't extend it because our ordinance would then preclude what had previously been vested. So it is an odd structure, but we've analyzed the ordinance requirements and nothing that has been passed. They'd received a 1-year original extension last year. Nothing has changed in our ordinances that would affect the proposed vested development on this site. So therefore, they are assured of they meet the requirements for getting another 1-year extension under the series of extensions they can request.
Understood. I know, confusing. Let's see, did we have a motion
we did.
on item 6 to approve? Sorry, and a second?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Abstain.
Okay. 1 abstention. The motion passes with 1 abstention. All right, that concludes item B, old business. Item 9 is committee action items, beginning with the Finance Committee.
No, wait.
Wait a minute.
No,
We
we
got
need-
old business.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I put a check
There.
on the wrong one. Forgive me, thank you for catching me there. Old business, an ordinance providing for the annexation of half an acre lot.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Final reading ordinance number 19082.
Now we get to old business. Nope.
You get to
I got 2 different agendas here, sorry. Now we get to committee action items, item 9A. The first is Finance Committee. Mr. Chairman.
The Finance Committee, after a very positive discussion about housing and then a small presentation by Housing for All, we discussed the opportunity to remove the match that was required when the initial $50,000 grant was given in the past. So we're not asking for any additional funding by the town, but we're asking unanimously by our committee to have the match removed. So.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second to approve the remove of the match requirement for housing for all Mount Pleasant. Again, how much did that?
It was 30, I'm not sure exactly.
think it was about
30,
30 left.
how much?
32, I think.
31,000.
31,000.
Yeah, 31, 32.
Thank you. So it amounts to $31,000, but the motion is just to remove the match requirement.
Yes, it is.
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, last month, we had a very good presentation regarding grants being available for things like this from the county. And I would like to strongly encourage Housing for All to make that grant request. And if they need help from the town, that our staff provide that, because I didn't hear that the money had all been spoken for. I know they did talk about funds that are being given to waterworks because of applications, but I think this would be an ideal application.
Yes. Ms. Lanning?
Yes. So two things. One is the fact that they're a year old is now going to allow them to do things like apply for grants. That was something that was mentioned before. And also, as we all discussed in Finance Committee, I know it was discussed in Planning also, this, they've done a great job of raising funds so far, but if we kept this in place, it would slow down what they're able to do now, which is to move forward with some actual projects. And after all, that's the whole point here. So actual facilities for folks. So that's what we wanted to see happen so they don't get held up.
Before we vote, and I would add too that I was a big proponent of the match requirement to be a motivator, and I think it served its purpose, and I think we're where we wanted to be at this point, and I want to commend y'all for doing that, and I certainly will look forward to voting for this. Are we ready to vote? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 9-0. Next.
The next is the mid-year budget adjustment, and that'll be done in new business,
Thank you very much.
I think. Marcy, is this an item to address now, or is it?
Well, it's item 1, so item A1. This moves us to section 10, council business, new business. Item A1 picks up on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2020 town budget is in the amount of $3,121,922. There are 5 items in this amendment. There's an additional $195,000 for right-of-way landscape maintenance. There's $12,500 for short-term rental software. There's reimbursements to departments from expenditures associated with Hurricane Dorian in the amount of $307,996. There's a transfer of $1,606,426 to the capital fund for transportation and stormwater infrastructure projects per the Town of Mount Pleasant's fund balance policy. And then there's recognition up to $1 million for reimbursement from the Mount Pleasant Water Works for the Park West Boulevard widening.
Okay. So is there a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to approve the mid-year budget adjustments.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and we have a second. This is item 10A1. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are we applying to FEMA for any of the money to help with pickup of debris from Hurricane Dorian?
Yes, sir, we have, and right now it looks like we will be getting 75% reimbursement. It's just the timing that throws us off with our fiscal year. We have not yet heard from the state about the 25% match that they sometimes also kick in.
Right, but we are applying, and it's a good chance we'll at least get 75% of that over $300,000 back.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to approve. This is item 10A1. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
First reading ordinance number 20006.
Item number 2 is first reading of the ordinance. This has to do with the humane treatment of animals.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. This was thoroughly vetted in police, judicial, and legal, and I believe we have good input from our police department on the enforceability of this, and I believe it was passed unanimously by the committee. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
First reading ordinance number 20007.
Item number 3 is an ordinance to add the section that would create the council standing committee known as the Committee on Flood Resilience.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve. We have a second. I want to add that I asked the question as the chair of that committee, did council want to say that the mayor chairs or whatever, and what came out of the committee was when the mayor is doing the committee assignments, let the mayor decide who chairs it. Can be the mayor, might not be the mayor. It might depend on, future years, how involved this is and how much flooding resilience we're dealing with. So it will not have a designated chair at this point, which I think it works great. So we have a motion, we have a second to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
First reading ordinance number 20008.
Item number 4 has to do with law enforcement assistance and support with the city of Goose Creek. I did not give my friend Mayor Habib any trouble over this, give him a hard time over this. For the record, can we just hear exactly what this entails?
Yes, sir. The memorandum of understanding is if Goose Creek would request our assistance, it protects us, gives us legal right to be able to assist them, or vice versa. They come over and assist us, protects the officers, allows them to enforce their statutes and laws that apply. And Goose Creek does help us quite a bit for the bridge run. They're one of the many agencies that we bring to assist us.
Fantastic. Do we have a motion?
Motion
Second.
to approve.
All right.
Sorry.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. This is on item 10A4. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I can't wait to call Mayor Habib. Item number 5, discussion regarding Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Conduct for all volunteer boards and commissions. I believe that's Mr. Santos.
Yes, sir, Mayor. After looking at the ordinance that we already passed, it's already included in there. So I don't think we need to do anything, but I am happy to announce that 100% of our council members have signed this document already, which I'm very proud of. Thank you. And now I just ask for the clerk of council to make sure that she gives it to the department heads to have all of the appointed boards and commission members to sign it as well as according to the ordinance.
All right, so noted. Item B, old business. There is no council old business. Item C is executive session. If there is a motion for executive session, the first is legal and contractual regarding legal advice related to pending case known as Shem Creek Development Group versus Town of Mount Pleasant. Item B is legal advice related to pending case known as Stephen Brock versus the Town of Mount Pleasant. Item C is legal advice related to potential litigation involving the town right-of-way near Hadrill Street in the Town of Mount Pleasant. Item D is legal advice regarding a contractual matter involving the town's contract for legal services. The second reason, number 2, is personnel, consideration of applications submitted to serve on the Planning Commission, consideration of applications to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals, consideration of applications submitted to serve on the Culture, Arts, and Prides Commission, and D, consideration of applications submitted to serve on the Historic District Preservation Commission, which used to be known as the Old Village Historic Commission. If there is a motion and a vote, council may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the reasons stated?
I make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to go into executive session for the reasons stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in executive session.
What's that?